are here with a very special episode of Blood, Sweat, and Beers, the official Dallas Beer Guardians podcast. I am your vice president, and my name is Dennis. We're here with your president, Marcus, and director at large, Hubert Tito. And we're going to talk non-FC Dallas here in this very special episode, where today we'll be covering the U.S. Open Cup, some happenings around some other leagues, and stay tuned to YouTube because we're going to keep these rolling when we have time and there are things to talk about. We'll be dropping these little nuggets of non-FC Dallas pods. So take it away, gentlemen. What are we thinking?
First off, support local soccer.
Always. Most definitely. A tradition like no other, and by that I mean basically everywhere in the world, U.S. Open Cup is...
But ours is older.
Fair enough. Although we can't say continuous anymore because
not anymore
for 2 years, which is a disappointment, but we understand the reason. But Open Cup, which in my opinion is the only authentic bit of U.S. soccer, is back. And this year their formatting is different. They announced amateurs go against lower division pros. So it was a lot of open division versus D3 this first round. So we got a couple of strategies here. You can go with a lot of USL2, NPSL, UPSL do college players. Unfortunately, right now, with the way college soccer works, a lot of those players are unavailable. So you can do the Des Moines thing where you get the MLS All-Stars 2015-ish.
The old guys team.
Yeah. The retirees, although Matt says he's not retired yet. Or you can do Foro, who beat the team who Dennis is repping at the moment. That was a good game as well. So let's talk about that. So USL has announced this year that the prize money has gone up to $1 million purse. So we've always argued that investment into US Open was what was necessary, and while it was under control of MLS, we didn't see that investment. It's nice to see that we're seeing that investment now with U.S. soccer. So those are the two changing. We have a higher purse. So the winner gets $600,000, runner-up gets $250,000, and then every lower division, if you finish the highest in that division, you get $50,000. So
okay,
if you're lucky enough in your championship team and you make it to the semifinal, which I think is what they did last year, you get $300,000 because you get the runner-up money and the $50,000. So that's all good. So let's go down local teams. So the newest professional team, if I'm not mistaken, newest professional team in US is Texoma.
That is correct, at least at the moment. At McKinney's right behind them as well. So they're, I think, only a couple weeks apart. I'm not sure which one's ahead of or the other, but Texoma got to host their first ever game up at historic Bearcat Stadium in Sherman, Texas this weekend, or last week, and then they hosted their first league game this weekend as well. But Foro came in and conducted business in Sherman.
I know you're technically a cup set, but Foro's no joke.
No, Foro's a good team.
Foro's better, we'll say amateur, whatever teams that are in this tournament. I don't think it's embarrassing for Texoma to have lost to Foro, and I think there was probably a few people who thought Foro were going to win.
Texoma has they've played no games, so we don't know what to rate them against.
Right.
We don't know a lot of their players. Some of them are FC Dallas connected. They got the other Pepe.
El Trencito.
Yeah. So we don't really know. Their attendance was up. They announced 3,500 for the first league game. So maybe there's a little hope up there. But as far as
attendance, do you know?
They didn't announce. That's the thing about.
They didn't announce, but
they didn't
really
push
low, and
either.
They didn't promote it well at all. I think it was just a matter of scheduling and timing.
Were it still paid tickets though?
They were paid. It was a separate ticket as well. It wasn't. I don't believe it was included with season package for Texoma, and so.
Got it.
From the stands, it looked like there was only maybe a couple hundred people. It was also a brutally windy night up there, and we'll talk about how the wind affected some other games as well. But
most of the country, so as far as attendance goes, I don't usually give Open Cup a lot of grief until further in. The Tuesday, Wednesday lineup thing is always going to be an issue because Tuesday, Wednesday work days, you can't get kids to come out, et cetera,
Sure.
et cetera. So once you get later in the rounds, you do get weekend games, I think, if I looked at the schedule. So
Sure.
we can go through, let's go through right quick and check the cup set that happened. There weren't very many.
No,
right?
there were
Toro
not.
beat Texoma cup set. And I think that
Upset-ish.
That might have been the only one on Tuesday.
Yes. I think everybody else that is oh no, Virginia Dream beat the Kickers of Richmond. So that would be a slight cup set, but I think those are the only
that's
Des Moines, which is the MLS All-Stars beating Kansas City 2, is a cup set on paper, but really only on paper. And if we want to talk about weather, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, holy cow! But it was fun to watch.
Don't forget El Farolito heading to Salt Lake and beating the Real Monarchs.
Talk about a serious amateur team. I know
the Burrito Boys.
Yeah, man. It's one of them things where like that team is a team you look at and it's like, this is why we need an open pyramid.
This
right?
is why the Open Cup exists for teams like this, and this is such a great story.
Those guys who are mostly just amateur dudes who have jobs. I think they had one former pro on there, if I'm not mistaken, who used to play in MLS. He's an older guy, but everybody else is just like regular dudes who have regular jobs, and they come out and they play. The Real Monarchs are Salt Lake's MLS Next Pro team, and I still have my doubts about that league as a league. But I guess on paper, professional. And I think that is it. Right?
If you want to talk about some specific things here, I want to talk about the attendance thing like we were talking about.
Yeah,
While I agree that I don't want to hold that against a lot of teams on a Tuesday night, Hartford Athletic had phenomenal attendance, and they did that because they knew that they weren't going to get a ton of interest. So instead of trying to sell the tickets, they pushed the game hard and let people in for free.
Yeah.
And they had one of the best atmospheres of the entire Open Cup this match window.
The best atmosphere this was Maine, the new team. Maine, what is it called?
It's Heart to Pine or whatever.
Yeah, they had almost 5,000 people there on a school night at high school stadium.
By the way, they may have the two coolest kits I've ever seen.
Was that not also their debut game?
Yes. Well, yeah, that is their first game ever played in the league. So I agree with you. That is a strategy, right? Because what we want to get to, in my opinion, is a point where we can do revenue splitting. So a lot of these, so we don't have to worry about like the prize money. We'll just do it like most other countries do, where like the lower division team always goes to the higher division team, and then you split the gate, so it's actually worth it for them. But as a strategy to get people in the stadium, I agree. I can sell you concessions and I can make decent money. So just come in, bring everybody in the family, and buy a $4 soda or whatever the price is.
Yeah, it's just part of what bothered me with the Texoma game.
Is that what it is? Yeah,
it just bothered me that Texoma didn't do more, and maybe I'm just being weird about it.
And in additional cup sets, the New York Pan Cyprian Freedoms.
My team this season for sure.
Took FC Cincinnati 2 all the way to PKs and beat them 5-4 in PKs. So not the couple cup sets going on around town. Yeah. I mean, New York's they're a powerhouse in Open Cup every year. They're always.
Are there any games you guys want to specifically talk about? I think most of it went relatively as expected.
Well, first, how do y'all feel about the amateur teams immediately playing a pro team instead of having them play each other a bit? So that
I think it's good for geographical reasons. I think it works to have these local amateur clubs go to a local pro team and play there and be able to not have to spend a ton of money traveling. I know it's Boro's got a tough battle coming up. They have to go all the way to Georgia for their next game. And
I saw that. I was like, who did that?
That's a tough one, but I do think that getting these sort of local rivalries going too is going to be really good for everybody involved, right? So, Foro getting to go up to Texoma to play their first cup game up there. It's easy. It works for everybody. It doesn't cost the club a ton of money, and for a first round game, I think it's a good idea.
From a competitive perspective, I love it. I think it's the most natural way to do it. from the financial side of things. We're now looking at, like he said, Foro traveling to Georgia. It's pretty wild. I don't know what the balance would be there, though. I think eventually, if they perform, they would have to do this anyways.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to say that any other way would be better. I just feel like competitively, this is more organically done.
And then another question is, how do we feel about MLS only coming in 4th round, right? So I get it, right? So this was probably a compromise in order to get them back into the fold. But at a certain point, it's like, do we not want the bigger teams in earlier? Because like the cup sets are what we want. And
yeah, I don't know, that's tough for me. I know it doesn't compare perfectly, but one of the Premier League clubs come into the FA Cup. It's not a 1-to-1, but just trying to get an idea here.
They come in 3rd round. Now, granted, they start off with more teams. So
yeah.
We have a fix. It's 96, right? So there's all of USL, and then I guess this year 16 MLS, and then 16 Open Division, right? Which is every amateur league in the country has to play each other, and then the winner of that.
Right. So, I guess I just feel I would be okay with MLS coming in around earlier. I think it's fine. I don't think that it cheapens or improves it that much, personally.
Yeah. So the reason I ask, I mean, I agree with you.
On the team.
The reason I ask is it's not really like as much as we call them a cup set, a USL 2 team and an amateur team are kind of the same thing, right? It's just that
at least at that bottom level.
Yeah. They're in a structure, of course, sure. Right? But USL 2 is mostly just college kids that play in the offseason, right?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
why when USL said they were going professional and doing pro supposedly, they only did championship U1, and then they're building a new league. USL 2 will continue to be,
right.
I guess what they call National League in most other countries, right? You play each other, and then if they institute it, maybe the Des Moines or people who have a fan base and the capability can move up if they win. But other than that, they're academy leagues. So
I think it's better for competition to bring the MLS teams in a little bit later, and I don't mind them coming in the 4th round. You know, if we were in an open pyramid, some of these teams would be coming in later rounds anyway, just because of the level that they play at and the amount of games that they play over the course of the season. I think it's better for competition for the lower level teams to play other lower level teams. I don't need to see DC United blowing out an amateur club, right? Nobody wants to see that. That's not good for anybody.
But I think to Marcus's point, he likes the idea that you would have that matchup, but that one team goes balls to the wall and holds their own until the end.
And I agree, and we may get a few of those, and maybe we're robbing ourselves of a few really, great, memorable moments. But also, I don't really want to see an amateur guy slide tackling into taking out my pro that's going to miss half the season either.
Yeah, but again, as far as I've been watching USL Open Cup for a long time, that's almost never happened, right? There's not the desire to hurt the guy. There's a desire to be like, hey, I could have been a pro if XYZ didn't happen, so I'm going to play out of my mind. But I've never seen I get what you mean, but I haven't seen. Now, can we talk about some of these fields? That Tulsa matchup was absolutely atrocious, right? U.S. soccer has got to figure out a way to enforce some of these stadium picks. Some of these fields were terrible. I would rather you go find a high school field. And I don't like the lines. They really annoy me. But I prefer that to you going and finding
something dangerous.
It definitely had a CONCACAF vibe, didn't it? Very CONCACAF.
No, I was highly upset. And to be honest, in one of those cases, Tulsa playing Tulsa, if a match official, which I'm assuming U.S. Soccer sends these guys to check it out, if you see that, how easy is it to reschedule and go across town to FC Tulsa's venue instead of playing there? Because that was disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't the only one. I think Little Rock also had a field where I'm like, this should not be happening for sure. And funny enough, this is what Garber uses as an excuse as to why they don't want to participate. So we should definitely take that excuse away.
To that same point, though, again, it's like what I just said. To that point is you don't want a guy getting on a field that is maybe not up to par and maybe not as good as it should be. Again, you're talking a guy that is has value to an MLS club that maybe he's going to get moved on later in the season, and he comes out and he twists his ankle on a shitty field or hits a divot on one of these fields that shouldn't have been even part of the game. So yeah, that is on the federation to step up and say, okay, well, you need to meet certain minimums if you're going to play in this tournament. Yes, you can be an amateur side, but you need to have a professional level field.
Yeah, I think the only requirement they have is lights, which is most of these games are at night. So I think that's the only requirement. If I'm not obviously if it's raining and there's a drainage issue, that obviously, but a dirt field should not qualify because there's a couple of these games
Or would you rather dirt or turf?
I would prefer turf, to be honest with you.
Listen, I get the turf discussion, but the younger guys don't care.
They don't care because they don't. It's actually really bad.
Yeah, they don't care until they hit their mid-20s and they can't run anymore because their ankles are up.
But I'm saying, you look at MLS, no one below 25 years old really cares about playing on turf anymore.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: MLS, almost all MLS stadiums are grass. Almost all of them.
Yeah, with the exception.
No, you're right. But just it's a real thing, just internationally, even the younger people don't care about turf. It's just the older people, and they're aging out.
I will say the conversation is going the other way in American football, right? The NFL is looking to, or NFLPA at least, the Players Association is looking to do away with turf fields as much as they possibly can.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the Aaron Rodgers effect, right? The guy came on, played 3 snaps in the MetLife turf, and blew out his knee for the season, right? So these are the types of things that in this game are even more devastating, right? Because a guy twists his knee in soccer, he's never coming back from that in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
sure.
Well, I think we can all agree that U.S. soccer needs to have a heavier hand when it comes to venues. And I think to avoid venues, you know how you do that? You use the teams that have venues. Some of these teams should not be allowed to host, to be completely honest with you. If you don't have a venue, you can't host. So the fact that you play on a field does not mean you have a stadium. So 2 things. It's really weird. I found out while watching these games that FC Cincinnati 2 technically plays in Kentucky, even though it's only 15 minutes away from Cincinnati.
Well, Cincinnati Airport's also in Kentucky.
Yeah, why did that never register to me? I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. So I know we have a short time here. I think we're all excited about U.S. Open Cup. Like I said, I think this is the most exciting thing ever that U.S. soccer needs to. I hope we figure out better prize money. Someone suggested on the broadcast that they should do a per game, even if it's $1,000. If you win, we give you that as you climb up. Because the 50,000 is a good carrot, but you should be rewarded. You should be rewarded, and Furrow, you now have to travel to Georgia. That's a plane ticket for how many guys are you sending? At least 14, right? Then the coaching staff,
right?
That's a check. And they're probably going to do a GoFundMe or something in order to make that happen. And if they do, obviously, I recommend we all support.
Michelle will just cut him a check.
Wait, Michelle play for him?
He's higher up than Toro, isn't he? Yeah.
Is it? Oh, wow. That's we know he played before money really came into MLS. I don't know if he has.
Fair enough.
Well, which team are you guys looking forward to? Have y'all looked at the schedule? What game are y'all looking forward to next week, which is April 1st, which again, we should do any event on April 1st.
While I'm looking at those fixtures, I just want to point out something that Marcus pointed out, and it's how frustrating it is that our current champion isn't in the tournament this year.
That is annoying.
Yeah, technically LAFC 2 is, so we can say that. But
the Galaxy is our defending champion, not LAFC.
Wait, no, I thought is it the Galaxy? No, it's FC.
No, the Open Cup champion.
Open Cup champion.
Open Cup champion. Okay.
Yeah. So Open Cup champion. LAFC isn't defending their championship because they're playing Leagues Cup.
Yep. LAFC isn't defending their championship, and the MLS winning team is also not in this tournament.
Yeah,
which is
also
disappointing.
Future idea for a tournament. I would love to see a 4-way community cup between Liga MX winner, Canadian Premier League winner, USL Championship winner, and the MLS Cup winner. It's a quick weekend, right? You can run that, knock that out.
Replace Leagues Cup with that right now. I'm sold.
Yeah, I'm just saying that would be cool. But yeah, go ahead.
My game is Ford Madison against Tulsa.
That's gonna be a fun one.
I think that'll be a fun one. Both those fan bases kick ass.
I kind of want to see Des Moines Union Omaha. The Union Omaha fans have been giving Des Moines a lot of stick. I don't know if y'all watched that broadcast. The old man jokes were flying. It was beautiful.
Shout out to SK2 supporters, which I don't really want to shout out. KC supporters a week before SKC 1 comes to Dallas, but those guys gave that team the business and they took over that stadium. And shout out to them for being out there in that weather, that miserable cold and wind, and they really look like they had a great time.
Look,
Yes.
I don't think that Des Moines cares that they're being called old. I think they know that, and they're like, yeah, so what?
Because here's the thing.
Beat us.
I personally think if the wind wasn't an issue, they probably beat that SK2 team by a lot.
Mhm.
Like you could see on the couple of moments, the 1-2 touch passes, I'm like, oh, they still got it. Bradley is a little, his age is showing, but Sasha Klechkin is still a world beater. And Matt is tail end of his prime, but is better than anyone who's not playing in MLS right now.
Yeah, I mean, we know, if you made it to that level of soccer, odds are that you're way better than a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And even if you're losing a step, if you understand the game, reading and positioning, you're gonna get something out of it.
Yeah. So the two games I'm looking forward to: Chattanooga Derby. Those two teams.
That's gonna be a fun one.
I think that stadium. I think they said they got 3,000 for the last game. I think for that game they might 7,000-ish. That stadium might be fun. Another caveat about these YouTube things is like we need to put the people on the TV side of because a lot of these stadiums they'll announce attendance. You're like, how? And then you go look at a picture and you realize everyone is sitting on the opposite side.
You mean like Frisco?
Fair enough. But in Frisco, there's nothing you can do about it. In some of these stadiums, they're just picking the wrong side.
Yeah,
of the stadium.
it's poor planning.
I would also say Hartford against Portland. Curious to see how Portland travels because Portland's traveling for that game, right?
No, that's home.
Oh, I thought Portland was traveling to Hartford for that one.
No, Hartford's going up. So Portland. So that first game wasn't in the, and I keep saying Portland, thinking it's the opposite sides.
Portland, Maine.
Yeah. Well, I think Hartford, from what I understand, has a decent traveling group. Let's see on a Wednesday though. So I think that'll be an interesting one just from fan bases. Portland's fan base seems to be pretty wound up, which I'm sure they'll show out for it. And Hartford, like I said, they market and push their team really well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a good turnout there, just for atmosphere. I think
the Miami Derby, I wish they would have flipped this because Miami FC really needs whatever they can get to get attendance down there. Big boy. They're playing into Miami too, who almost lost to Miami United. It ended up being a barn burn of 4-2. That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Even if it's not actual Inter Miami, I think they'll play with a chip on their shoulder. So
for sure, I think Miami FC is going to try to prove a win there. And I think AV Alta is a good team. They did the thing I recommend all lower division teams do, which is get an old baseball stadium, knock a wall down, and convert it to a proper soccer stadium. Their attendance is not looking great thus far, but I think they're doing pretty well.
You're talking about AV Alta? Sorry.
Yeah, AV Alta.
Do you think they have it against LAFC too, though?
No, but hey, LAFC is traveling to them, so I'm hoping attendance pops up. Because here's the thing: this is one of the instances where I don't mind bad marketing. Just forget to put the 2 on there. Just tell. LAFC's coming to town. LAFC is coming to town. But yeah, I think for this round, I think those are the matchups. Ford Madison, I think, has some of the best marketing. That kit is absolutely beautiful. I don't know what a flamingo has to do with Madison, Wisconsin, but we'll take it.
Sure.
There's a whole bit there that we could get into at a later date.
No, for sure. But I think those are the 2.
How about the Westchester Derby going on? You got Westchester heading over to Mount Vernon to take on the Pan Cyprians.
My gosh.
I think it's the other way. I think they're going to Westchester.
Are they? I mean, they're both local up that way, so they're in.
If I'm reading Google correct, right? The home team is top, away team bottom, right?
You might be.
I couldn't tell you.
Yep, you might be right. Yep, that is in Westchester. You're right. That is in Westchester, in Mount Vernon, at the stadium at Memorial Field, which I have never heard of, but I'm sure it is a interesting venue.
For sure. Well, I will say, watching these games, USL has gotten really serious about their stadiums.
Good.
So even if it's a small 3,000 seater, they're trying to get control over their venues, and I think that's probably
a good step.
that's a good step for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've got Tacoma versus Spokane. Like, there's a lot of local games going on too. I think that's
I mean, that's the sign, right?
right. That's the coolest thing about this tournament is that you get all these local teams that typically will never see each other, right? Outside of a friendly or a scrimmage, you get all these local teams that play at different levels, and you get to see them take on each other. And I think that's the most fun part about it. And
Which is why it's insane to see 4-0 travel to Georgia.
I know it seems like that was the last one left out, because if you look at almost everyone is playing clubs as close to them as possible, other than
Well, here's the thing. The only other team 4 could play is Little Rock. That would be a road trip, but they're basically the same division, and U.S. is trying to
What
do
about
Tulsa
Tulsa?
Yeah. How long? Tulsa, that's what, 4-hour drive, give or take? Yeah, I guess you're right.
Because Madison's driving down from Wisconsin to play in Tulsa.
No, opposite.
Oh, I had it flipped.
that
Either
game's
way,
in
the
Wisconsin.
trip is long. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're just a victim of drawing the short straw there.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
because
all it
everybody
is.
else matches up pretty well. You got Columbus, Lexington. You've got even Farolito's playing in Monterey. So all these teams are relatively close. Alta versus LAFC 2. You've got all these relatively close to each other games, and I think they just drew the short straw of like this is what's left over. So guess
so
what?
I think your furthest
You're on
ones are Tulsa and Madison and 4-0 and Georgia, I would guess.
Yeah. Everybody else.
Where's FC Naples? Where's Naples? Like Naples, Florida?
Florida.
Yeah, Naples, Florida. Yeah, they're just up the street. That's a trip.
Little Rock to Florida is a drive.
It is.
So why isn't Naples playing Georgia?
Because then you'd probably have to have Little Rock and Naples. If Naples plays Georgia, then you're left with
Little Rock and 4-0.
No.
Little Rock.
Professional. They have to be.
Oh, got it. It's the amateur pro thing. My bad.
You'd have to find an amateur team for 4 to play, and the only one is Tulsa.
I didn't realize we were trying to do that. Yeah,
yes, that's what. So some of these are professional versus professional, right? So versus Hartford, but everybody else, there are no amateurs versus amateurs, and I get why they're doing that. They want them. They want to keep They want amateurs not to knock themselves out. So I get that, but yes. Furrow isn't complaining. I've looked online. No one's said anything. They're all making the trip. But and then next round, to be honest, I don't see a cup set in this. I guess Des Moines is a cup set, kind of, sort of. But I think everybody else is in line to. I think I'm expecting all the pros to do what they need to do.
Man, I'd watch out for them burrito boys.
Yeah, I think my big one is Miami FC. I think
you're correct.
I'll have a shot against Inter Miami. I think Miami FC might take it to Inter Miami.
Fair enough. Well, here, I don't consider those technically upsets, right? So that's why I said Carolina Core is not going to beat the Independents. Although I watched that game and I was not convinced that the quality of the Independents. So there's an opportunity there. But
you know what? I do actually have one more here.
Go ahead.
Be a cup set. El Paso Locomotive has not had a good time the last few games. Granted, their season's just kicking off, but they finished last season weak, if I remember correctly, and their fans were not too thrilled with how the team was going. So I don't know how good Ventura is, but there's something there. El Paso's given up a lot of wins and a lot of ties late as well.
Oh yeah, they're 3 games, 2 draws, 1 loss, goal difference of 1. I mean, that's not terrible for 3 games in. So
no, but they're letting in a lot of goals in the past, so we'll see what happens there. Granted, the team's probably changed. Anyway, I don't know. If you're trying to pick games that might be cup sets, El Paso's not a strong team right now.
So here's the caveat, though. Of the 4 games they've played, 2 of them they've gotten a red card. So they got a red card. They tied Phoenix. And they got a red card and they lost to New Mexico. So that's something you've got to clean up for sure.
But that's what I'm saying. They have the potential to really screw themselves over. So let's see what happens there.
Lots of interesting games, and we're just over a week out, probably less than a week out by the time this gets released on the YouTube channel. So check back with us after these games, and we'll have a recap of some of the games that we watched. We'll make we'll have some conversations about what's up next. I'm gonna have to put this one up on the shelf because Texas was out of the tournament, but their season did just start. So a lot of USL stuff that we'll probably talk about this week or next as well. There is still Nations League that we didn't cover, and there is Dallas Trinity and FC Dallas games coming up this weekend. Lots of stuff happening. Marcus, hit the line.
Like, share, subscribe, support local soccer, no matter what division they are.
Dallas on social media. Come find us and come join our tailgate for free beer.
Have a good night.